At this time, you should know the basics of Linux file system navigation. Let's move to the second most common thing that you'll experience, that is listing directory contents. Let's start with ls command that you are already a bit familiar with. ls command by itself will give you the list of files and directories within the current folder. It's not that useful. However, ls command has various options that you can apply to either get more details or sort the output in particular order or filter the results. Let's start with ls command syntax. It is ls, then optional switches that you prefix with a dash, and then optional list of files or folders you want to display. For example, ls-1 will list all data in a single column, in contrast to regular ls that spreads out the output into multiple columns. In this example, we did use -1 option and did not provide the folder list. So the command assumed we wanted to list the current directory. On the other hand, ls folder 1 will list the contents of folder 1 directory. We did not provide any options here. It's also possible to specify the path in absolute manner. For example, ls/home/philip/folder1. Just as a reminder, the absolute path always starts with a slash and goes down the tree to specific directory or a file. Most frequently used ls option is -l. It will show you a bunch of useful information. Let's analyze the output, starting from the right. On the far right, you have a list of your directories and files. You cannot always rely on the colors to distinguish if a particular entry is a file or a directory. Sometimes your terminal does not support or is not configured for color output. The easiest way to identify if an entry is a file or a directory is by the first character. D indicates a directory, dash indicates a regular file. There are a few more types like symbolic links that we'll cover later in this course, but also block devices, character files, named pipes, sockets that we won't be covering. Next is the modification time. It indicates when the contents of a particular file or directory did change. One thing to mention, in case of a file modification, time is pretty straightforward. In case of a directory, modification time changes when a new file or a folder is added or removed from that directory. Modification time of a directory won't change if the content of a particular file inside that directory is updated. Something to keep in mind. Next column indicates file size in bytes. Same story here. If it's a file, the size is exactly as shown. However, if it's a directory, the size is not what you think. Directory size, shown by ls command, is the amount of disk space needed to hold the directory's metadata, like name and inode number of the files or subdirectories it holds. It's not the amount of disk space occupied by the files inside that directory. In Linux, the minimum size of a directory object is 4 kilobytes, but it will grow along with the number of entries it contains. Usually it's around 32 bytes per file, but it can be more depending on the file system. Next two columns show the owner and the group the file or directory belongs to. Then, the number of hard links and finally file or directory permissions. We'll talk about all of those properties later in the module. You can provide multiple options to the ls command. For example, ls-l-f will not only list the details, but also classify the entries by adding slash to the directories, so you can easily identify them. If you put more than one option, you can use only a single dash and glue the options together, like this. There is yet another very common ls option used with conjunction with -l, and that is -a. It will show you hidden files. As you can see, hidden files or directories start with a dot. Those entries are not normally visible when you use ls command, hence the special a option. Usually, those are configuration files that inexperienced user should not modify. There are also two additional items. Single dot that refers to the folder we are in, and double dot that refers to the parent folder. If you want to get the same output, but without those two special items, you can use ls-l and then capital A. Let's move to file size. By default, it's displayed in bytes. It's not very convenient, especially if the size is large. There's a dedicated parameter -h that will show you the size in human-readable format. That is kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes. You can also sort the files by size. Let's do this by typing ls-l and adding -S. It will display the largest file first. Usually, what you want is to have the largest files last, so that if you execute a list command, you will see what is occupying most space. There's a dedicated option -r that will reverse the sorting order. Let's try that. Another common task is sorting the files by modification time. You will use it frequently to check what are the most recent log files. In order to do that, let's try the ls-lt option. It will sort the files by time with the newest first. Let's reverse the sorting order by adding -r option. ls-ltr is one of the more commonly used options. Although modification time is the most frequently used property, there are more time-related attributes. Easiest way to get all of them is by using stat command. Among other properties, there are 4 time-related ones. Modification time is something you already know. It changes every time a file content is changed. Let's try appending some text to the end of our file and execute the stat command one more time. As you can see, modification time did get updated. The change property indicates the last modification of the file metadata. As an example, let's change the owner of the file and execute the stat command again. As you can see, the modification time is the same, but change time did get updated. Don't worry about the change owner command. You will learn about it soon enough. Last concept of list command that I want to talk about is filtering. Single ls command will just list current directory content. Let's say we want to display what's inside folder 1 directory in extended format. In order to do that, we put -l to get long output and directory itself. Voila! We see the content of folder 1. What if you'd like to see the folder 1 itself and not its content? There's a dedicated parameter that does just that. Let's try ls-d. As you can see, we got what we wanted. To perform a partial match, let me introduce an asterisk, that is a wildcard character and represents any combination of characters. Let's try that first with ls asterisk. We got all files, all subdirectories, and their content. It's equivalent to putting all files and directories as a parameter to the ls command. If we don't want to go inside those directories, let's just limit the result with -d. It will show only the directories and not its content. If you want to see only the directories, we can do that by adding / at the end. What if we would like to filter the result by anything that starts with FO? In order to do that, let's type ls FO asterisk. This will list only files and folders that begin with FO. Let's try the same trick with entries that begin with letter T. Nice. Apart from asterisk, there's yet another wildcard character, ? It can represent any single character. So, if we want to match folder 1 and folder 2, we could simply do ls folder ? It did print folder 1 and folder 2. We made a request for a folder prefix followed by a single character. We can also use an asterisk at the beginning or in the middle of our expression. Let's say we want to see all the files that end with .txt. It can be done easily with ls *.txt. Or the other way around, if you want to list files with test as the name and any extension. If we want to limit the extension to any 3 characters, we can put 3 ? You can also be specific. If you want the name to start with F or T, just put it in square brackets. If you want the results to end with .txt, just add it at the end. You need to play a little with those expressions to get a better feel. Lastly, you can check the manual for almost every Linux command by typing man and the command name. It will give you documentation on how to use that command. To exit out of the manual, just press Q. Just to recap, ls command has various options that allow you to get specific details or sort the output. ls command accepts list of directories you want to display. Path can be specified in relative or absolute manner. You can use wildcards to filter the output. Asterisk is any combination of characters. ? is any single character. Square brackets hold specific characters you want to include. You can use stat command to get more details around a file or a directory. You can use man command to see the documentation.